Good morning to you. Mark Sott with HurricaneTrack.com here with your hurricane outlook and discussion. Friday the 13th, 2019. Happy Friday the 13th to you, and happy Harvest Moon Day. Full moon on Friday the 13th. That should be a fun night at emergency departments around the country. All right, so in the tropics we have, of course, potential tropical cyclone 9. This is the step that they have taken to be able to issue advisories on a disturbance that looks like it's going to go on to develop into a tropical depression or stronger, and so they can do advisories and watches and warnings, and it fills in those gaps between when a system is taking a while to develop and when you have something that's already developed. You know, they don't have to wait to issue advisories. So it's a step between an invest, where we call something 95L or whatever, and a tropical depression. For you and me, it just means we have advisories. And so here's the latest from the National Hurricane Center, the 11 o'clock update here, Eastern Time. Wind still around 30 miles per hour. We'll take a look at a satellite loop of it in just a moment. The pressure about 1,009 millibars, so it's not obviously very strong. It's still somewhat disorganized and trying to get itself together. Tropical storm warnings are up. Tropical storm watches are up for certain areas. We'll look at the track map in just a moment. In terms of hazards impacting land or affecting land, as they have here, wind, rainfall, storm surge, not much storm surge to speak of, which is great news. Maybe tropical storm conditions in the warning area of the northwest Bahamas later today, and they are possible along the Florida Peninsula by Saturday or Saturday night, with a few inches of rain in the Bahamas and maybe parts of the peninsula of Florida. So overall, I guess you could say a fairly low impact event so far. Looking at the visible loop, and we'll look at the track map in just a moment. This is a real nice product here from Levi at tropicaltidbits.com to be able to get the high resolution visible satellite imagery, and you can see several interesting things going on. You have the wind coming in this way. You also see there's wind curling around this way, and there's probably, that's a nice little band right there. There's another band in here, and then these blow-ups of convection or thunderstorm activity in here indicate to me that this is probably trying to get together most of its energy and its bundling efforts. We talk about that a lot, the bundling of energy, somewhere in here. But you do have this sort of leftover smaller feature right down at the surface. This will probably die away, and this larger envelope of this energy that's trying to come together should take over with this very broad turning that is happening. It seems to be focusing right in here somewhere. So that should take over, and then eventually continue to kind of move off to the northwest with time. Here's the Abaco, Great Abaco. Marsh Harbor's right in here. There's Grand Bahama, and we don't need this to come anywhere near there. There are some showers and thunderstorms in the vicinity of these areas, loosely related to the overall circulation and low pressure trough associated with this system. Now, back to the National Hurricane Center site. Let's see if the track map has been updated, just to give you an idea of what they're showing with that. So let's look at the 3-day outlook first. And yep, this is the 11 o'clock. So now the official forecast keeps the center offshore of Florida. Boy, does this look familiar. I mean, I tell you, you just, wow. And I mean, look, it comes into the northwest Bahamas. So whatever intensification process it's going to go through, it's going to add a little bit of misery here to the already miserable conditions that the survivors of Dorian are going through. So, relief organizations need to take this into account. This will send swells out, even in its disorganized state. We should start seeing some high surf impacting the coast up here, from the Carolinas down to Florida, and then maybe on some of these north-facing beaches, even down into the Turks and Caicos and the southeast Bahamas. And then we'll see what happens in terms of how much does it intensify over time. And the Hurricane Center does make it a hurricane center, the National Hurricane Center does make it a hurricane in their forecast here by days 4 and day 5 here, days 4 and 5. I just woke up a little while ago, and I needed that sleep, so don't besmirch me for sleeping in. I was working late last night, went and picked up the remaining equipment on the Outer Banks. I'm up here in Rodanthe this morning making this video, and I got about 6.5 good hours, but I'm a little groggy. So yes, they make it a hurricane in their forecast here from Lixian Avila, and I think that's how you say his name. And I think it'll become a hurricane sooner than that, just based on past experience. We know how intensity forecasting can go. Now, you look at this and you say, oh, thank goodness, another miss for the United States probably. And we know how these forecasts go. It's not locked, and that is the default. We should always think this is not locked in until it's actually happening. So I'm going to show you a few things that, as we get towards the end of my update here, that make me wonder as to whether or not this will transpire. So we looked at the close-up. Now let's take a look at the broader picture. And there's a few things going on. You got this upper level low rotating across the Gulf. And if this hangs around long enough, it's trying to develop some thunderstorms over that warm Gulf of Mexico. The rotation and the energy is mainly in the mid to upper levels, but if it hangs around long enough, it can build more of a warm core base, and the column of the atmosphere changes, and you just never know. Joaquin started in 2015 from an upper level low pressure area. So we'll watch this as it gradually moves back towards the west and maybe the west-southwest over time. There is what will eventually be Humberto. That's going to be the name, by the way. PTC number 9. This is Invest Area 96L, and here is some more energy behind it. And both of these need to be watched for our friends out here in the islands, Barbados and the rest of the Lesser Antilles, the Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico. These are only a few days away. So the tropics are becoming more concerning in terms of impacts to people, sensible impacts, weather that you can sense or feel. And, again, try to keep stuff on the straight and narrow, that we don't hype things up, but when we see things that are important, I make sure I discuss them. And that is that all of this is happening before the pattern flips to very favorable that we see coming after about the mid part of the month. And we're getting there, and that should last on into October. So all of this under marginal overall conditions. We still have fairly substantial sinking motion going on across this area, and we'll talk more about that in the days to come, but that's the setup on the larger scale in terms of what's happening throughout the next several days, and plenty of things to keep an eye on. So here we take a look at the 12 UTC, 12Z guidance, and really want to focus on these models here. We know what the new forecast is, but this gives you an idea. The consensus models, they're buried right in here somewhere, and that's generally what the Hurricane Center is going to go with. But there are a couple of subtle hints in here. A couple of these are starting to bend back this way just a little bit. Probably well, I'll show you the euro in a minute. I almost said it. The GFS, which is represented by these A's here, AEMI and the AVNI. That's the GFS operational, and it means literally the AVN interpolated, but it's the GFS, okay? This is the mean, and this is the operational. And that's right in there. And you got that little bend back, we'll highlight it in yellow here, to the south and east. A lot of the rest of these are generally paralleling the Florida coast, but well offshore, and then out into the Atlantic. By the way, that's Bermuda. So could be out to sea, but a close brush with Bermuda. We'll see how this all shakes out. So let me just show you. This is a representation of the plots here, what we call the spaghetti plots. But this is the GFS from 6Z this morning. I'm just going to go through some of these frames here. And you notice the 850 millibar level, there is the system. It's rather loosely organized, and that's important because the less organized this is, and you see the GFS brings it right up over Florida there. This is the 6Z run, so it's not like this is 2 days ago or something. And it does. It tries to bring it right up over the peninsula there. We go back. That's the initial. There it is in the Bahamas. It stays, just kind of a mess. Approaches the Florida coast inland. Hangs around over northern Florida. This is 72 hours out. And then finally comes out over the water. And you see these other systems developing out across the Atlantic. That's out to day 5. And you notice here in this pattern, you've got this opening, this trough, this weakness down here that would be an escape route. If Humberto to be were stronger, it would probably follow this weakness on out to sea. But this is 5 days out. You also notice, can't deny it, a couple of systems here that we'll certainly keep an eye on. Let's wait and see if they even form. Sometimes the GFS can be a little trigger happy. We go back in time. I'll just show you those Atlantic systems. Looks like around 48 to 60 hours or so is when it looks like that tries to develop. So we'll wait and see about that. So let's just take this. That's 48 hours. All right, so here's the Euro from last night's 0Z run. Not that different from 6Z overall. And so this is the initial. There is PTC 9, or Humberto to be, represented in the vorticity field, the energy in the atmosphere, as I call it, the spin, 2448. Compare it to the GFS 48, quite a big difference, much more organized in the Euro than the GFS. So that's very important, because the stronger it is, obviously the more impacts it has in the Bahamas, and the more likely it is to miss Florida, I think. I mean, this is very complicated. And I'll show you some more things that are going to make this even more complicated in just a moment. So that's 48 hours out, 72, 96. It kind of sits there. That's an important junction. That 72 to 96 hour time frame is huge, because it looks like it's going to intensify significantly. Then at day 5, it starts to make its move. And in this instance, I will show you day 6, day 7, because look, it does head out to sea. A lot of people will show you day 6 and day 7 when something's affecting land, because they want people to click on their video or click on their image or whatever. But I'm showing you this because this is important in terms of what I'm going to show you next. All right, so that's day 6 and 7 there. We went out to a week. Go back, show you how this evolves. There's the analysis from last night. It comes up, hangs out a little bit, and then tries to get out. And there's a few interesting things. You can see the surface high up here, 1024, right there, millibars, height line, or I'm sorry, isobar. That's surface pressure. Anyway, let me show you this. Are you ready to be shocked and amazed? All right, so this is the 6Z run, operational, of the Euro. The European now does off-time, off-synoptic runs. The big-time runs, as we call them, synoptic runs, are 12Z and 0Z. Recently, they added an 18 and a 6, so it mirrors the GFS. This is the 6Z operational relative vorticity, 850 millibars. And this is from the weathermodels.com site. I found this GIF animation on a message board, and so I'm just giving credit where credit is due. And this shows not going out to sea, out to 90 hours. The Euro only goes out to 90 hours. So, you see what it does here, comes up and then makes this loop back. And that could be the start of something. We'll have to wait and see. What I am concerned about, and we're going to go back to the Euro here to day 4, is if we get ridging building up over the top here, this could come up and it could do a loop and head back to the west. That is not out of the realm of complete. It's not like, Mark, that's an insane idea. Several of the ensemble members show that. That's why we have ensemble prediction. And if we look at the upper dynamics, this is what concerns me. 96 hours, there's your escape route right there. This is the low pressure in the atmosphere, and it's an anomaly compared to climatology. The background state being 1981 to 2010. This is several meters, and this is all meteorology here. The blues show a negative height anomaly over the northern Atlantic there. And if Humberto to be gets up close enough to that, it just kind of follows it out. No problem. I agree with that scenario, and right now, that's where the biggest confidence in most of the people that are watching this lies, okay? That's where the confidence lies, all right? But if this ridging that's anomalously strong, stronger than it should be, this, against the base state there, swings in faster and stronger, and this fills in, then this gets trapped. This builds over the north part, what we call the top, and yes, it could send it back to the west. Do not be shocked if that happens. That is not a prediction. Mark said it's going to go back to the west. No, I didn't. I'm saying, looking at this run here, gives me reason to believe, don't count your fish before they hatch. You like that pun there? People call an out-to-sea hurricane, it's a fish storm, so there you go. See what you did there, Mark? Yes. And I don't mean to make it lighthearted, but sometimes you do, because this stuff gets maddening. A lot of people in Florida are watching this very closely. A lot of people up the Georgia, Carolina coast, the East Coast, watching this closely. And when we think, we got a lock, it's headed out to sea, maybe a close brush with Bermuda, something like that, while a majority of the intelligence in front of us suggests that that will happen, that's not a guarantee. So you better believe I will be watching the 12Z guidance. Well, I would anyway, of course, but it has even more weight this time around, in my humble opinion. So I'm going to shut my mouth, close this video out, upload it, share it with you fine folks. We put it on Patreon first, as well as our HurricaneTrack Insider site on the chat. And then a little while later, I make it publicly available on our wonderful YouTube channel. And by the way, a big welcome to all the new followers on YouTube. I appreciate you tuning in. If you're interested in more in-depth, more exclusive content, I am providing that on Patreon. A great way to crowdfund what we're doing, while also enjoying a few perks along the way, some of which are unique and available only right there through Patreon. The only person in the world doing a lot of what we're doing, and if you're already a patron, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So that's it. I'm in Rodanthe. I'm going to wrap up things here. I picked up my case, my box left over from Hurricane Dorian there, the live camera unit. And by the way, the damage out here is more than I thought it would be from storm surge. All kinds of debris that businesses and homeowners have put out along the curb to be picked up by the recovery crews that come out here. And so I feel it for you folks here on the Outer Banks. My heart's out here. I've lived close enough to visit the Outer Banks as a child, and now as an adult coming out here as part of my profession. Hang in there. Be tough. I saw at the Hatteras Secondary School, they said on there they had a thing that said hurricane strong. I like that. Good attitude. You got to adapt and survive and be strong. And you guys on the Outer Banks and you folks in the Bahamas, hang in there, all right? I know it's easy for me to say, but I'm with you. I feel you. All right, I am Mark South, HurricaneTrack.com. I appreciate you tuning in, as always. Probably will do another video discussion late this evening once I get back home, and we'll go over and look at what the 12Z guidance said and maybe even the 18Z, and we'll see what happens from there. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you again tonight.